So the biggest Nintendo Switch game that is released so far in 2023 is Fire Emblem Engage, the newest game in the Fire Emblem series, and I've been playing it for the last couple of days ever since it came out, and I figured I've played enough of it to the point where I can kind of talk about it now and give you guys my thoughts. So I haven't beaten the game, I'm like more than halfway through it now, but I don't really see my opinions on the game like drastically changing from now to the end of the game, so I feel like I can talk about it and give you guys my thoughts. Now, just a bit of background with me and Fire Emblem so you can get an idea. I'm definitely not like a huge Fire Emblem fan who's played through all of the games in the series. I played the Game Boy Advance game a long time ago when I was a kid. I played through a little bit of Fire Emblem Awakening but never finished it, and then I played through Fire Emblem Three Houses when that came out on the Switch a couple years ago. I figured I should mention that because there's definitely some mixed opinions that I've seen about this game, and it seems like a lot of them are divided between like the classic fans who grew up playing like the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube Fire Emblem games, and then some of the modern fans who played the games like on the 3DS. Alright, so moving into the content, Fire Emblem Engage comes with a ton of content, and there's a lot of different things that you can do, so I was pleasantly surprised with all the stuff that came with the game right from the game day one. So in terms of the main adventure, it's one single path as opposed to having multiple paths or branching paths like how they've had in previous Fire Emblem games, and there's a total of 26 chapters. And this main adventure is definitely pretty long, like you're not really going to be knocking this out in a day or two, it will take you a little bit of time, so I definitely do think that it has a good amount of content. And in addition to the main story, of course, there's a lot of other different things that you can do as well. So you've got like these paralog maps that are also going to be showing up where you can go ahead and do extra little missions and be able to recruit other characters and learn even more about some of the emblem characters and things like that. So that's pretty cool. There's also these skirmishes that might pop up on your map where you can go back and revisit some of the older maps to be able to level up some of your characters and take out some enemies and get items that way. So you've got other things that you can do also. Now, in terms of graphics, this might honestly be one of the prettiest games that I have seen on the Nintendo Switch, and that feels so insane to say because with Fire Emblem Three Houses, one of the biggest criticisms that people had with that game was the way that it looked. So Three Houses was a good game, but the visuals in that were definitely not the best. I'm sure you guys have seen like the N64 fruits that were inside of the game, and just like how the monastery looks and the battlefields with the backgrounds and the low-res textures and all of that. So going from that into Fire Emblem Engage is just insane to see because it's night and day with just how pretty this entire game is. Of course, it isn't perfect, so if you do try to look really hard, you will find some rough spots, but it is definitely significantly better than how Fire Emblem Three Houses looked, and just overall, the entire game itself, I'm a really big fan of the direction that they took it. Like, first of all, it's definitely really crispy in terms of like the actual resolution itself. The game tries its hardest to be at 1080p, and for the most part, it definitely is very crispy looking, but just also the art style itself is very colorful and vibrant, and just all of the animations, the effects that they have, the cutscenes, everything is just so colorful and it looks really nice on your TV. Now, the gameplay of Fire Emblem Engage is by far the strongest part about this entire game. If you've enjoyed Fire Emblem games in the past and just really enjoy like the Fire Emblem gameplay of strategically like picking exactly where you want to place your units on the map and the different types of things that you can do with the attacks and the abilities and skills that you can have and the different move sets and which types of characters to bring and all of that, you are going to have a really good time with this game, as I feel like this is definitely traditional Fire Emblem gameplay that a lot of people have kind of missed. And one of the reasons for that is that this game brings back the weapon triangle from previous Fire Emblem games, where it's kind of like a big game of rock, paper, scissors, where you've got lances that beat swords, swords that beat axes, and axes that beat lances. So the weapon triangle wasn't inside of Fire Emblem Three Houses, and you could pretty much just use any unit that you wanted for any type of situation. And then this game also adds some other things like status effects, where you can actually like break the enemy if you beat them on the weapon triangle to prevent them from counter attacking. And then they can also do like chain attacks where you can follow up if you have another character nearby. So there's definitely some cool mechanics that they've introduced. The way that the adventure works is also like a traditional Fire Emblem game where you're kind of just traveling around the world and going to different places and doing different battles and things like that. So like in Fire Emblem Three Houses, if you played that, it was basically like you were just confined to the monastery where you were teaching all of these students and all of that. And then at the end of the month, you would have like that calendar system where you would send out your troops onto a mission and then do something at the end of the month. And that's kind of how your battles happen there. But inside of this game, you're actually just traveling around the world, going to different locations and doing your battles there. Something else that I also really like about the gameplay inside of Engage is once you're done a map and fighting all of the battles there, you actually get like a little bit of an open area to kind of roam around in and find items, even adopt animals, talk with your party members that you just battled with, and it's pretty cool because it actually makes it feel like that part was like a bigger part of the world itself and not just a separate level that was created for you to fight in. Like you actually were in this part of the world and you fought there. So it's pretty cool that it actually gives you that ability after every single fight, and you can do some pretty cool things that way. And that's how you can also acquire bond fragments, and that's like an entire other gameplay aspect where you can use the bond fragments to be able to create other bond rings with other past Fire Emblem characters who may not be like emblems, but you can actually use their abilities to get stat increases and stuff, and that's like an entire other gameplay feature. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Now, like the monastery in Three Houses, Fire Emblem Engage also has its own hub world known as the Somniel, and this is like an island that's in the middle of the world itself, and you can visit here pretty much anytime that you want while you're playing through the game, and this is like your home base where you can buy different weapons for your characters, have support conversations with them, play mini games, and I definitely prefer this area much more than how I did with the monastery. For one, it's definitely a smaller area, so you don't feel so overwhelmed with so many different facilities and different areas to go to and all of that. And I definitely feel like it's much more streamlined too, with how some things are just pretty accessible, where you can just go to them from like one area. You can have access to doing like the different important things right away. So I definitely do think that it's a much better experience to have overall. And because it's smaller, it's definitely easier to navigate it and get to the areas that you're looking for and to find some of the characters that you want to talk to. And you can even do some mini games like having Alir do sit-ups and all of that, so it's definitely pretty fun. Now, in terms of the story, this is where the title of the video comes into play, because the story of this game is a complete joke, but I mean that in the best possible way, because the thing about this game is that the story isn't some like super crazy complex narrative with like a lot of layers to it and things like that. It's actually a very simple plot, but it's very also lighthearted and kind of humorous with a lot of the comedy and stuff that happens in there, and to be honest, I really enjoyed that. I feel like most of the time RPGs are always just about being in a really brutal and bloody war and a lot of conflict going on and stuff like that. And while there is a war and stuff still happening inside of this game, the tone of the entire game is just very lighthearted compared to like other games where I feel like it's much more serious. So because of that, there's just a lot of like comedy and funny moments and cute funny things that happen just throughout the entire game. Like with a lot of the characters that you meet, the lines that they say, the writing, the dialogue, all of it is just very lighthearted. And I personally really enjoyed that because I just haven't really played a game like this where it's been so kind of laid back and chill and just really funny and lighthearted, as opposed to just like a very serious and like deep and dark type of setting. So personally, I really enjoyed it and I had a really good time with it. And like I said, I haven't even finished the game yet, but if you just want a general rundown of pretty much what the story is about, it's this world known as Helios, and there's a lot of these different kingdoms, and all of these kingdoms guard a secret ring known as an Emblem ring, and inside of the Emblem ring is like the spirit of like a really powerful, sacred Fire Emblem character from a previous game. And you as Alir are the divine dragon who is trying to collect all of these rings from all the different places around the world and use them to try to stop this evil dragon who's wanting to use it to destroy everything. So it's a very simple plot, but honestly just the way that it goes with the characters that you meet and all of the events and the dialogue and everything, it's just really funny. Like, to be honest, this game is just an entire sitcom and I personally really enjoyed that. Like, just take a look at a scene like this.
Anyway, what did you lose, Yunaka?
It's a little round ring, kind of shiny with a hole in the middle. Oh, and it talks for some reason.
Come again?
It's just a really chill time and this game has made me laugh a lot, so I'm definitely enjoying it. But that's also why if the story is a really important thing for you and you want the narrative to be like really complex with a lot of layers to it and different plot threads that are opened up and all that type of stuff, then this is probably not the game for you. I don't think that you would really enjoy like this if you're looking for like some really nice and deep story. If you want something like that, I'd recommend that you just play a game like Xenoblade, or maybe if you're even looking for a Fire Emblem game, I definitely do think that Fire Emblem Three Houses goes much more into the story with like having different layers and stuff, because all of the characters in that game come from a history with like some stuff that happens with their parents and where they come from, and that region's conflicts with other regions, and then there's a lot of stuff that happens with the other characters, and it's much more focused with the characters in that game. As in Three Houses, you basically get like a small group of students, and these are the characters that are going to be with you for the entire game, and that's why they go through like a time skip and they become adults and they have new designs and all of that. So it's much more focused, and that's why their support conversations go more in depth and all of that type of stuff too. But inside of this game, you're just constantly going to be meeting new characters as you go to new chapters. And so that's why there's just going to be new characters joining you all the time. So you're going to have characters like Yunaka and Diamant and Ivy and Allchrist and a lot of characters who just keep joining you the more that you play the game. One of the other things that I also really liked about the characters inside of this game is that the protagonist actually talks. So Alir actually has voice lines and actually talks like an actual character inside of this game, and I enjoyed that way more than Byleth inside of Three Houses, as Byleth was a character that I just really couldn't get super attached to because she didn't really talk that much inside of the actual story, if anything, and really the only time I actually heard her say something was when she got a crit in battle where she said this.
Let the lesson begin!
So I'm actually very happy that Alir does have some voice lines inside of this game and is actually a character with personality, so it's definitely a much better improvement, and I definitely got much more connected with her, so I'm very happy with that. And as usual, the music with Fire Emblem games is pretty good too. There's even some remixes from older Fire Emblem games with like the lords and the characters who are inside of the rings, so that's pretty cool as well, and overall I think that the soundtrack is just really solid. And finally, going into the controls and customization, there's actually some pretty good stuff with the settings inside of this game. So first of all, you've actually got different difficulty options, such as having the game on normal mode, hard mode, or maddening. And from people that I've talked to who have played the games, like one of my friends who's actually played through every single Fire Emblem game, he's telling me right now that maddening is proving to be a challenge, and it is significantly challenging, and you're actually going to have to think really carefully. So if you are a veteran Fire Emblem player and you do want a really difficult game, you're definitely going to get that out of the gameplay inside of this game. You can even play it with the classic way where the characters that die on the battlefield can no longer be used again, so you've got that as an option. And they've also kind of changed how the movement of this game works, where usually in Fire Emblem games in the past, you click on a troop and then it kind of gives you like a tile that you can move it to with an arrow, and then they run over to that place. But inside of this game, you can actually click on a troop and move them by yourself by using the joysticks exactly where you want them to go. So that's pretty cool, though I am kind of just really used to having the traditional method of being able to click on which tile I want them to go to. So you can actually change that back inside of the settings too, which I'm actually very happy with. So it's really cool because you have both options, and this game honestly is just really nice to appeal to the classic fans as well as the modern fans in my opinion. And I feel like it's a really good introductory game too, where even if you haven't played any of the Fire Emblem games before, but this game is kind of catching your interest and you're interested in it, I definitely do think that you can play this as your first Fire Emblem game and you would have a pretty good time. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts and impressions about Fire Emblem Engage, and if the stuff I talked about in this video is making you interested as well, definitely go ahead and pick it up because I think you are going to have a pretty good time with it. I'm definitely enjoying it a lot and I can't wait to play more and see exactly how it ends. If you guys enjoyed this video, then definitely be sure to click that like button and also comment down below and let me know what you guys think about this. How are you guys feeling about Fire Emblem Engage? Did you guys like the game? Are you having fun with it? And would you potentially like me to make more Fire Emblem videos in the future? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. Definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.